Hello everyone and welcome to the lecture on AWS CodeBuild. So this lecture will contain all these topics. What is AWS CodeBuild? How to run CodeBuild? How CodeBuild works? Example build specification file, which is the default specification file for AWS CodeBuild. Planning a build in AWS CodeBuild. Benefits of VPC support in AWS CodeBuild. And working with AWS Lambda Compute in AWS CodeBuild. So what is AWS CodeBuild? AWS CodeBuild is a fully managed build service that operates in the cloud, making it easily accessible and scalable. So if you have worked with Jenkins or Circle CI or something, so this is exactly same service, but Amazon's own continuous integration service similar to Jenkins. CodeBuild takes care of the entire build process, from compiling source code and running unit tests to producing deployment ready artifacts. By using CodeBuild, users can eliminate the need to provision, manage and scale their own build servers, saving time and resources. CodeBuild offers pre-packaged build environments for widely used programming languages and build tools like Apache Maven and Gradle, making it easy to get started. So I just want to point it out that similar to Jenkins, but it has no the source code is totally proprietary. So Amazon has its own service, which is called as CodeBuild, which does the continuous integration and continuous build. Users can also customize build environments in CodeBuild to accommodate their specific build tools and requirements. CodeBuild automatically scales to handle peak build requests, ensuring efficient and timely builds. CodeBuild's main advantage include being fully managed, no need to maintain build servers, scaling on demand, pay only for build minutes used, and providing pre-configured ready-to-use build environments for popular programming languages. So in that way, it's more similar to Circle CI because it's totally managed. So you don't have to worry about the backend infrastructure to provision the servers or the compute environment or the Docker services or something like that, Kubernetes and all. So you just submit your build job, and CodeBuild takes care of spinning up backend clusters which you will not be aware of, and running your environment, building the software and deploying it, all those things. So how to run CodeBuild? So there are 4 ways. You can directly run through the management console directly. So this is manually building it, and then you can do it through AWS CLI. So you will just use AWS CodeBuild service. So this is good for if you want to automate through some scripts and all, but you can directly run from CLI also. And then you have SDKs. So there are APIs available to automate CodeBuild through some applications. And finally, the main place you will be doing in typical production projects will be through the code pipeline, where you have a pipeline, and that will initiate the CodeBuild, and that will build the project. Okay, how CodeBuild works? So first is an input. So an input which is provided. You must provide CodeBuild with a build project. A build project includes information about how to run a build, including where to get the source code, which build environment to use, which build commands to run, and where to store the build output. A build environment represents a combination of operating system, programming language runtime, and tools that CodeBuild uses to run a build. So just to give you an example, if you are, let's say, developing for Mac or some application on Windows or Linux, you have to at least say which operating system, what language you have used for your project, and what kind of runtime or tools that are required. So that this will come pre-packaged, so you have to just select those options. CodeBuild uses the build project to create the build environment. So there is something called as build project. CodeBuild downloads the source code into the build environment, then uses the build specification, which is the build spec.yaml, as defined in the build project or included directly in the source code. A build spec is a collection of build commands and related settings in YAML format that CodeBuild uses to run the build. If there is any build output, the environment uploads its output to an S3 bucket. The build environment can also perform tasks that you specify in the build spec. For example, sending build notification to an Amazon SNS topic, simple notification topic, so that you can get notified via email, SMS, and through some chat messages and all. So while the build is running, the build environment sends information to CodeBuild and Amazon CloudWatch logs, so you can track the logs or you can monitor the logs. And while the build is running, you can use the AWS CodeBuild console, CLI or SDKs to get summarized build information from CodeBuild and detailed build information from Amazon CloudWatch logs. If you use AWS Code Pipeline to run builds, you can get limited build information from the code pipeline. So Code Pipeline may trigger the code build. It will also have some information. So first is CodeBuild console, which have good amount of information, but detailed. If you should check the CloudWatch logs. And if you have triggered from code pipeline, that will also indicate whether the build is successful or not, or some kind of error messages. Okay, this is the example build specification file. So it's a YAML, so it will start with version, and then you have phases. So you have install phase, pre-build, build phase, post-build phase, and what is the deliverable that is produced, artifacts. So what will be the name of the artifact, which location it will be there, and most of the things will be like pre-build, what you want to run, and build is the, like, let's say Maven Java project, you do a Maven install, and after post-build you can take some action. So planning a build in AWS CodeBuild. AWS CodeBuild supports building from various source code repositories, including AWS Code Commit, Amazon S3, GitHub, and Bitbucket. So there are 4 supported at this moment. The source code must contain a build spec file in YAML format, which defines the build commands and related settings for CodeBuild to run the build. The build spec can be declared in the build project definition. When planning a build in CodeBuild, consider the specific build commands you need to run and the order in which they should be executed. This may include tasks such as compiling code, running unit tests, packaging artifacts, and deploying the application. Defining the appropriate sequence of commands is crucial for successful and efficient build process. Determine the runtimes and tools necessary to run your build. This may include specific programming language versions, build tools, testing frameworks, and other dependencies. Ensure that the required runtimes and tools are available in the CodeBuild environment or can be installed as part of build process. Assess whether your build process requires access to AWS resources that are not automatically provided by CodeBuild. So this may include accessing other AWS services such as Amazon S3 for storing artifacts or AWS Lambda for executing serverless functions. So plan for necessary permissions and configurations to enable CodeBuild to access those resources securely. So basically this is about making sure that you add the relevant access control, the IAM permissions and all, if you are accessing some other AWS services in your CodeBuild. Consider whether you want CodeBuild to work with your virtual private cloud VPC. Integrating CodeBuild with your VPC allows you to build and test your applications in a private and a secure network environment. This is particularly useful when your build process requires access to resources within your VPCs, such as databases or internal services. So you have to plan for the network configuration and security group settings to enable CodeBuild to operate within your VPC. So benefits of VPC support in AWS CodeBuild. So with VPC support, you can run integration test from your CodeBuild project against data stored in an Amazon RDS database that is isolated on a private subnet. This allows for secure and controlled testing of your application interaction with the database. CodeBuild's VPC integration enables you to query data directly from an Amazon Elasticache cluster during your test. This helps ensure that your application can efficiently retrieve and utilize cache data as expected. VPC support also allows CodeBuild to interact with internal web services hosted on Amazon EC2 instances, Amazon ECS clusters, or services behind an internal elastic load balancers. This facilitates seamless integration and testing of your application with these internal components. CodeBuild can retrieve dependencies from self-hosted internal artifacts such as PyPy for Python, Maven for Java, and NPM for Node.js. This ensures that your build process can access the necessary package and libraries securely within your VPCs. So with VPC support, CodeBuild can access objects stored in an Amazon S3 bucket that is configured to allow access only through an Amazon VPC endpoint. This provides an additional layer of security and control over your build artifacts and resources. CodeBuild can query external web services that require fixed IP addresses by utilizing the elastic IP address of the NAT gateway or NAT instance associated with your subnet. This allows your build process to communicate with external services in a predictable and secure manner. So working with AWS Lambda Compute in AWS CodeBuild. So there's also support to use AWS Lambda Compute. So AWS Lambda Compute offers optimized startup speeds for your builds in AWS CodeBuild. This means that your builds can start running faster, reducing the overall build time. AWS Lambda supports faster builds in CodeBuild due to its lower startup latency compared to traditional compute options. This low latency allows build to start executing more quickly. AWS Lambda automatically scales based on the build demand. This scalability ensures that your builds are not waiting in a queue to run, as Lambda can instantly provision the necessary compute resources. AWS Lambda Compute in CodeBuild supports a wide range of popular tools and languages, including AWS CLI v2, AWS SAM CLI, Git, Go, Java, Node.js, Python, Pip, Ruby, and .NET. This allows you to use your preferred tools and languages in your build process. If the curated images provided by AWS Lambda does not support all the tools you need for your build, you have the flexibility to provide a custom environment Docker image. This custom image can include any additional tools or dependencies required for your specific build setup. So basically, when you use AWS Lambda Compute, it will use some curated Docker images, but you have the option to provide your own custom Docker image if the tools which are provided, for example over here, they are not sufficient enough. So then you can provide your own custom Docker image with your own set of tools, and then that will execute. Only the important limitation is Lambda has 15 minutes overall limit execution time. So make sure the build process does not exceed 15 minutes. Otherwise, you have to use the regular compute options which are offered by CodeBuild, which is basically, it will be easy under the hood, but you will not be seeing it. But this option is there in case you want very fast startup time and quick startup and finish times. And that's all. Thanks for watching.